Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Oana.
As usual, Oana is in her Antonio Milani dress. This is a different one than you were last video. You have like how many of them do you have?
A handful.
A handful. Antonio actually makes his dresses for you.
Of course.
Because the models in Italy, they literally are the wrong size. They have to fit you first, and then he can make them for ordinary people.
There you go.
That's exactly how it works. So, with that being said, we have amazing data. We sat through tons of hours of economic slides from the NAR president, and we have all these slides. We're going to break these into multiple videos because this would be a massive, 1 hour video. We're not going to do that to you. But we want to tell you a story before we get going that is actually pretty fun.
Okay.
And it's a shout out to a couple of our viewers here. So we decided to go grab a dinner, talk about what we were going to do on the videos and how we were going to break all these videos up. And as you can see here, we went out to one of our favorite restaurants, got this yummy Capricciosa pizza. And while we were sitting there, a gentleman walked up and he spoke. What did he say?
So he was walking past us and he stopped and he said, "I watch all your videos." And I just looked up and just smiled because I had a mouthful of pizza.
Yeah, he said, "You guys do a great job. I love all the videos." We said, "Thank you." He disappeared. And then, okay, so it's that was very nice.
It was very nice.
And then, of course, we at the very end of our meal, we, said, "Hey, we're ready for the check." And the waiter says, "Oh, it's been taken care of."
Yes, that was very kind.
And I said, and I could see him, and I pointed at him and said, "Hey, did he pay for this?" And he goes, "Yeah, he did. He took care of it all and everything." So we went over and introduced ourselves. So we want to give a shout out to David, who was super, super nice. First of all, if any of you ever see us in public, just don't feel afraid to just say, "Hey, I watch the videos." We actually do quite a bit that this happens, but David was very nice. We talked for a little while, and this is what was fun. So we get in the car, and we're on the way back to shoot this video. We have to make a stop at a store, and we go in the store and go up to the counter. It's like a pharmacist, and the guy behind the counter says, "Oh, I watch your videos. I love your videos. I watch them all." So literally within a 20-minute period, we'd had two different people. And his name was Mickey S. From Ethiopia. And what's interesting that we're finding is the people that are watching our videos tend to have rental properties. We're seeing more and more where people say, "I watch your videos. I have my house and one rental or two," or they have some number of rentals.
Right.
Okay. So we do invite you to go ahead, if anything, if you see us, just say hey, or just come up and introduce yourself. And, some of you, we might remember your name if you're in the comments and things like that, but we really do appreciate it. We also want to point out too, that if you are purchasing rentals or selling rentals, we can help you do that. That's literally what we do for a living. We're very good at it. We've done over thousands, literally us actually have done thousands of these. So, but we just want to give a shout out to a couple of big fans that we met. It's fun for us too to meet people.
It is because remember, we're sitting here talking to a camera, so it's fun to meet real people in the real world. So we appreciate your comments, of course, and we appreciate when you reach out to us and engage us to help you purchase or sell properties. We appreciate that too, but we also appreciate just the hello out in public. We enjoy meeting you. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to the good stuff.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about two of the key factors. I've got some slides here.
Okay.
That are how we got here and where we might be going, because that's really what people want to know is where is this all headed. And so the the chief economist of NAR, Dr. Lawrence Chen, is a PhD in economics. He gave a very detailed analysis, and so we are going to go through some of the slides and his analysis, talk about his analysis and our analysis as well. So let's start with this first slide. Now this is the annual existing home sales, and this, as you can see, it's a bar chart. On the left side are the total number of sales. So that line is basically about 4 million, and then you can see the years, and then the height of the bar is how many sales. Now, there's two red lines. The red line all the way on the right is 2024. That's the total that we'll sell this year. And then you can see 1995 over there. Okay, they're the same length because the last time we sold this few homes was 1995.
Right.
Now, actually, it's even worse than that. Why is it worse? If it's the same number of homes, why is it even less homes than 1995?
Well, so when you're looking at the number of homes versus our population, right?
Okay.
That gives you perspective because we have about 70 million more people today than we did in 1995. And also keep in mind the kind of inventory that we had in 1995, meaning the total number of homes that we had in the U.S. in 1995 versus the total number of homes we have in the U.S. in 2024. So we have a lot more homes today than we had in 1995. We have a lot more people today than we had in 1995, yet we had the same number of transactions. So that gives you an idea of how below our need the transactions are occurring. And I don't mean our need as far as our need as realtors, but our need as far as the number of homes that need to be transacted in order for people to have homes to purchase.
Right. This chart here, I'm going to flip over to this one. This is the U.S. population chart. This, if you look at the red lines, this is 1995 and basically the last year, or how many we have now, you could say. But 70 million people. I just want to point this out too. Despite what you've heard about the baby boomers dying, this is not going to start declining. There's been this myth that we're going to have less and less people. We actually had more people born last year than deaths. We're going to have more people born every year for at least the next 20 years. And that doesn't even include net immigration,
right,
which is the number of people who, net immigration is the number of people who enter minus the number of people leave. Of course, we mostly people immigrate here, like Oana. Oana's an immigrant. She came to the U.S. from another country. And so, and remember, the baby boomers are the third largest demographic. They're not the largest. Gen X, like us, are the second largest. Millennials are actually the largest. And then Gen Z is a very large millennial. So the idea that the boomers are going to die and silver wave and all that stuff is fake. This chart is very straightforward. U.S. population is supposed to hit 400 million by 2060 or so. By then, pretty much the baby boomers, most of them will be dead. Almost all of them will be dead. But remember, we'll have 50-something more million people. And we won't build 50 million houses over that time frame. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this chart here. Now, this is the chart. And then you see that little area in the red box. Those were the depressed number of sales immediately following the housing crash. So you have that spike of homes and then the decline. So remember, that's after the housing crash. And when we say housing crash, it was really a home price crash. Because if you look at the number of sales, that's historically not out of line with the previous 20 years, except for the run-up, home price run-up, which was a lot of speculation, things like that, right? Right. Okay. The number of sales you're seeing from that little red box to today is a pretty normal number, with the exception of, you can see the little bump in COVID. And the other thing in there, too, is that 2021 was zero interest rate policy. You had a lot of people buying and transacting. But even with that, that's still far less homes. So just remember this. Whenever you see these charts, don't just take it on this, all other things are equal. Because when you go back to 1995, there were far less people in the U.S. So the numbers of sales have down, but you would think if sales are down, if I showed this chart to the Crash Bros 4 years ago, let's call it 2020, right before the pandemic, and said, this is what home sales are going to do, they would have literally called for housing crash. This has got to be a housing crash. If sales are down, it must be because housing's crashed, right? Right.
So prices and the number of transactions are not the same thing. Number of transactions indicates just that, the number of homes being sold. And home prices are a whole different story. So I think Todd's got a great chart coming up. There we go.
Okay.
With the home prices. So you can see that home prices, so we talk about this a lot, real estate is a long game. You have a lot of up and downs, but over the long term, what we're seeing is appreciation. So when you're going back from all the way to 1995 to today, you can see that homes have increased in value substantially for a lot of reasons. One of them is, of course, homes have a lot more bells and whistles today than they had in 1995. There are, inflation that plays a role, of course. Homes, there just are not enough to go around, right? Because we have not been building enough. And one of the ways that you see that really we don't have enough homes to go around is that you see a lot of these multi-generational homes. That's for a lot of reasons. One is affordability. Another one is, of course, the sandwich generation, which is you and I.
Mm-hmm.
So the sandwich generation is the generation that is living with adult children and our parents. So that's why we're the sandwich generation, because we're in between these people, and we're housing both of these generations.
We're not living with adult parent. Adult parent is living with us.
However,
there's a difference there.
Yes. Well, the point is that all these people are under our roof.
And a desert tortoise. We have a
desert tortoise.
Mojave desert tortoise in the house. So sleeping right now, so we have to keep it down a little.
Yes.
We don't want to wake him up. Okay. What's important about this median home price? There's a couple things I want to point out here. One, and you feel free to just jump in here. You'll notice this thing looks very granular when you see the dots. This is basically, they take like monthly representation. So every little dot is a month. And some of them, they run together. And you can see actually, it looks like a line, but then you see little dots. So this is median home price. It's for the whole nation. It's not for any specific market. All of these ups and downs look oddly suspicious, that like they're fake or whatever, but they're actually seasonal. Oana, why are they seasonal? Like what? I don't understand why they would go exactly up and down, almost exactly the same every year.
Because the seasons are the same every year.
The seasons are the same every year. And how do the seasons affect home buying?
So we know that over the holidays, so that means Thanksgiving, Christmas, people tend to kind of hunker down and spend time with family and do other things and not transact homes. Same thing over the summertime. Once the heat comes, certainly here in Vegas, we don't want to get out as much. Although you could not tell that this past weekend. I think it was about 118 degrees.
It was crazy hot.
And one of my agents held an open house. He had 40 people come through the open house.
What was the price of the house? Was it a high-end home? It had to have been your agent.
It was $4.7 million.
40 people to see a $4.7 million house.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but it kind of gives you an idea to your point as far as the seasonality of it. So we do more transactions, obviously, in the spring. So we start out somewhere around February or so. Things start to pick up, and we kind of go gangbusters through May. It starts to peter out in June, and then just kind of decline steadily through the fall. There's a little bump maybe at the beginning of the fall, a little bit, and then again things slow down for Christmas time, and then come January, February, we pick up again.
Okay, you can see all that if you look at this chart. This is very evident from what I would call the most normal of normal markets, where after the housing crash, when you had people coming back in the market, you could go back like maybe 2012 out to 2020, where home prices rose in the spring and then declined slowly into the fall. They have done that every year, including the year that we were told home prices would crash. They declined into the fall and went right back up in the spring the next year. And then they declined last fall, back up in the spring. Guess what they're going to do this fall? Their home prices will decline a little bit, and then they'll go back up. And you could see that this chart does not look anything like the Crash Bro chart. Remember, they make up their charts. When you look at this and go, Todd, this can't be median home price. I've seen the Crash Bro charts. Home prices literally went like this for 5,000 years. They measured it from when like humans first arrived in the U.S., 5,000 years ago. And then 4 years ago, home prices went straight up. That's what the charts look like that they show you. None of that's on this chart. If you look at this chart, if you go back and basically drew a line through it, it's going to pretty much touch most of this, especially if you go from 2011, call it, to today. It's pretty much, this is pretty normal. Like home prices are probably the most stable appreciating thing. But what I think is most interesting is, remember we just showed you a chart where the total sales were literally not only the worst they've been since 95, but adjusted for population, probably the lowest they've been in 40, 50 or more years. Mm-hmm. Okay? 40 or 50 years. We actually had more homes sold probably in the early 80s when interest rates were 18%,
Yes.
is a percentage of total homes. Okay, because I think we sold like 3 or 4 million homes back then, and the country was much smaller back then, probably 100 million people. Okay, but here we have the highest price. We just hit a new high, the highest of high prices, with the lowest number of transactions sold. There's this thing called the lock-in effect. What is the lock-in effect? Locked in. People are locked into their house.
So the locked-in effect is where these people are either debt-free, so they don't owe anything on their house, or they have a super low interest rate. Those 2-3% interest rates. So they're in this situation where they simply cannot emotionally get involved with a 6-7% interest rate because they've got either no mortgage or they have a very low interest rate. The thing about those people is that life happens. Okay. So while I agree that most of them will hang on to those properties for as long as they can as an investment, even when they move on and purchase another home, life happens. And sometimes people have to sell. So whether they have to sell for family reasons, economic reasons, whatever it is, people do have to sell. And I don't mean that they're distressed. I mean, they make a financial or family choice to sell. Most people, like I said, have learned that if they can hang on to those properties, they will. So a lot of those properties will not transact, but some will. And that's what's been going on, right, for the last couple of years, where there have been transactions out there, even though people have great interest rates, because life dictates that you prioritize other things besides your interest rate.
Right. It seems like, over time, people have bragged about their income or their job or status or something that they have in life. But it's the thing I hear today people brag about is their smoking interest rate that they got. Like, oh, I got this 1.9%, and it was because of this like special deal where this lender was like buying down the rate, and it was perfect, like I perfectly timed the refi. I refied my house or bought a house, and I talked to another friend of mine. He's got a 2.25%, and he's like super excited. He's like, Todd, I'm never getting rid of. I can't get rid of that. It's 2.25%. Like I'm going to keep that forever, and just his payment is super low on his $3 million house, and he's got a super low payment. I mean, considering today, I think interest rates are 7. Now, I'm not going to show the other charts because I said we got about 80 other charts. So we're going to break these into multiple videos. Lowest number, because people want to know, what does this mean for the future? Okay, here's the big thing. We have the lowest number of total sales. Home prices did not crash. Okay. We also have the highest home prices we've ever had, ever, literally existing at the same time. You could call this Schrodinger's housing market. If you don't know what Schrodinger's is, there's this thing called Schrodinger's cat. You have to read about it because I'm not going to explain it.
Or you could watch The Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory. But in the housing market exists two things simultaneous. The lowest number of home sales ever and the highest home prices ever. They're existing at the same time inside this box. But what I'm wondering here is with 7% interest rates, which remember, you're still looking at this chart, median home price. We were told home prices would crash 40-50% 2 years ago, and it basically did. And even with interest rates going from 3 to 7%, it basically just continued to do roughly the same thing that it does every year. It went up, it went down, a little bit bigger of a down, but it went right back up, just like it always does. Let's say we have 6 to 8 interest rate reductions between now and the end of 2025. Okay, let's say we get rates back down close to 5. Say we get down to, say they're 0.25% cuts, and we get down to 5.25. What happens to the housing market? Do you think people still say, oh, I've got that 2.5, I'm not getting rid of it, 5's not low enough? Or do you think the problem that we have is at 5, we spur so many people that want to buy, but we don't have enough sellers to match them? Like, what happens when we have even more demand? Where does this thing give?
Short story is supply and demand. There's no way we don't have enough supply for the demand we have today. So, and that's at 7%, 7.5% interest rate, depending on your credit and whatnot. So if we don't have enough supply today, how are we going to have enough supply when we have even more demand? So what that says is that we're going to have another bump in prices that are going to be precipitated by these lower interest rates and more people getting in the market. And then we also have people who are marching along in their life, right? And they're getting to that point in their life where they're ready to buy a home, they're ready to settle down, they're coupling up, they're having children, all those life events. So all of that is continuing and marching along. So from what I can see that over time we're going to have continued appreciation in homes regardless of what interest rates do. But in particular, the lower the interest rates go, the higher home prices will go, because you'll have more pressure from buyers to access an insufficient amount of inventory.
It's funny. I was watching one of the I'd call him the main crash bro, and he was on a TV show, and he had identified like 3 specific markets that prices could fall as much as 15%. Now remember, these are markets that are up. These specific markets are up like 80-something% total, right? And they could fall 15%. And it's like, congratulations, you finally, after years of saying the housing market would crash and telling people not to go buy a house and cost people literally hundreds of millions of dollars of equity, you found 3 markets out of 400 that were actually overbought. And that probably prices were a bit too much, and there's probably a little overbuilding and a little too much inventory. Prices will adjust in those markets. They won't crash. The markets are hot tech markets, and they will eventually recover, but they're just a little weak right now. Vegas is not one of the markets, by the way. Vegas is a super low inventory, high demand, high job growth market we have unlimited potential here. We have cool new stuff happening here.
Right. So one of the markets that your favorite crash bro identified was it was up 60% since the pandemic, and yes, it's been down 10% change over the last 18 months or so. However, the thing that he missed explaining to everyone is that a couple tech companies with really high paid workers, and lots of them, are relocating to that area. So guess what? I don't see those home prices being off 10% or thereabouts for very long, with an influx of people that are going to be looking for housing and can afford it.
This is a company that just announced they're leaving their state of California.
It was a couple companies, yes.
A couple companies, and they're going to Texas, and specifically where they're going to this one city in Texas. Right. Anyway, so here's the bottom line. We have low transactions because of interest rates. We have high prices because of supply and demand. And the forecast for this is, until people start letting go of properties, or until new home builders start building more, which they're not building near enough, this thing is continuing to build. And I don't mean build and blow up like a bubble. I mean, it's building to the point where owning a home is one of the scarcest resources. Like, if there are people who hoard gold because they think like the dollar is going to go away and the gold will be the store of value, whatever. Like, really, for me, I'd rather just have a bunch of rental houses and collect rent every month and have these things appreciate than, have to put. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with gold, but I'm just saying that for me personally, I think this is the investment vehicle. Everybody I've met that has rental properties is not selling them unless they have a major need, meaning we have to move, so we need to sell the properties. We need to use the money to go buy the next property. It's in a more expensive market, and it's a job transfer, or we have to do it, or I really need to pay off this high interest debt, so we're just selling the rental property, we're doing this stuff. Like, they have pretty valid reasons. We sold one for a couple that literally said, we're in our 70s, and we just need to sell this. This was our one rental. It was great for us for like 30 years we had it, but now we need to sell it because we're old, and we're just going to put the money in the bank and live off it until we die. And that, which is a perfect reason why you would even own the house in the first place, right? You just want all the money for, if you want to go buy an RV or you want to do something else, you've got the money.
Exactly. So there are lots of reasons why people choose to sell, and there are some very valid reasons why people choose to hang on to real estate. If you are looking to sell, please contact us and we'd be happy to help you. If you're looking to buy, please contact us. We'd be happy to help you. Leave us your lovely real estate related comments down below. We appreciate them. Remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.